So there's something I always want to do with Paint and Talk for myself that I'm always way too scared to, right? And that's basically come here with a question that I genuinely have. Not a question that like I think I have a good answer to, but a question that I've just genuinely been curious about and try and answer it. The reason that I'm always scared to do this is because one, it's selfish. This isn't an idea that makes good Paint Talks, but it's usually an idea that gets me kind of an answer to my own question. Like, I think there's something about speaking out loud for 30 minutes or 10 or 15 or 20 or however long these are end up being, rather, that just like gets you much closer to an answer than like thinking about something, right? So it's selfish. It doesn't make for a good Paint Talk. So there's kind of like that part of me that's like, no, go shut up. Like go do that on your own time. Go talk into a camera on your own time. And then the other part of it is just that like sometimes I get halfway into it and it's like, okay, either A, I have just outed myself to have bad questions and bad answers and have nothing to say about anything and be a complete fraud, or B, I just have nothing to say now. I have nothing to say, and now we're gonna sit here in silence as I try and awkwardly fill it. We've all seen it happen before here. I'm not gonna act like we're, the most quality controlled program on the internet. We're not even much of a program. We are in fact just me painting, which is why I think like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I decided today I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try and answer a question because, I think there's a certain honesty to it. I think I'm getting cocky now that we're 82 episodes in, and I need to do something that's gonna be bad to humble me a little bit. And I think also there is just an honesty, like genuinely speaking, jokes aside, I think there is a honesty to coming here and being like, okay, I don't have an answer, but I really am wondering this question. Let's think about it together. Best of all, I've done this twice before and gotten really good answers in the comments. So today we are on Dice's Selfish Tour. But my question today, as is probably in the title, is when is it too deep? I'm sure, as you guys could assume from watching any of these, I hate when people say it's not that deep. Like, I hate so much when people say that. This is something that, due to me being an annoying little pestering, questioning, snot-nosed, greasy-fingered iPad kid. I don't really have an iPad, but no, I had an iPad, I just wasn't an iPad kid. Either way, because I was an annoying little shit as a kid, I got told that a lot because I was asking too many questions and people would go, it's not that deep, right? And I think, like, genuinely, if I'm speaking here, not in terms of any jokes or self-deprecation, it's given me this complex where no matter what the question, if you tell me it's not that deep, I'll be like, fuck you, it is that deep. It has to be that deep. To an extent, I believe this, right? And that's why I want to come here and discuss it. Because, like, I think there is an argument to be made that anything is as deep as you want to make it, as you want to look into it. I think also, like, there are so many things that you could look back through history and go, like, you could be like, Plato, the cave is not that deep. Like, this isn't, you don't gotta do that. And like, what if he didn't? Like, there's an argument that like a lot of the famous philosophers are just going saying nothing, right? But they also had all these thoughts that transformed civilization. And I'm not saying that in the way that like, I am going to have a thought like that. I'm saying that more in terms of like, I do somewhat believe that everything is worth exploring, right? With that being said, as I've gotten older and experienced more and lived life, there's a part of me that's encountered some questions where I go like, the answer might really just be to like sit in the middle a little bit, Like some questions, maybe the answer is just kind of do what works for you, or forget about it, or like just don't think about that too much. That's a bad route to go down. Like, there are places in which I feel that's a valid way to go. So how do I make this too deep now? How do I think through this question and go like, okay, so when is it something that I should, veer in this on the side of like, don't think about that too much? I think the first obvious answer that my mind goes to is when it's a small question, you know? When somebody asks me curly fries or steak fries, and I sit there for 20 minutes thinking, yeah, no, that's not that deep. The reason that I don't go with this is because sometimes I also use the it's not that deep or don't think about that too much route for really big questions. I mean, you guys saw me do this on the Paint and Talk about morality. Or maybe it wasn't in that Paint Talk, but in relation to morality. I did this on the internet live for all you. I went like, I am okay with everybody having their own moral code of what works for them. Because I think that if you are to like sit there and try and come up with moral rules that apply to everyone all the time, like I think that's a vain, or is vain the word, a vain pursuit? I just think that's a never-ending tunnel. I don't think you're ever gonna get an answer, right? So in a way, I mean, I am the guy that would go back to Plato and be like, dude, why are we thinking about that? Like, I'd go, morality, just chill. Like, and I feel like, well, that there is like an argument that like if I were to write a paper or whatever, like that in itself would be a form of philosophy. I'm painting and talking. I'm not thinking about that, right? That's too much genuine academic exercise, and that's not what this is supposed to be. I think also, this is a complete side tangent, right? Kind of related, but a complete side tangent. In relation to deepness, right? I've gotten a few, and I never ever address comments or anything like this, because to be fair, sometimes I don't even have time to read them, and I only really try to respond to like very nice ones or people that put a lot of thought into them. Hugely appreciate that. I've gotten some comments though about me being like anti-intellectual. Somebody even DM me being like, are you aware that you come off that way? And I don't want to, I feel like there's sort of, not so much that I want to address the haters. I don't think that's a real thing. I think that's kind of a dumb thing to do. And those people aren't hating. I think that's a very valid concern of like, is this a guy that I'm gonna watch for the next 10 episodes, and then he's gonna pull up a bottle of seed oils and a stick of butter and tell me how seed oils cause inflammation? Like, is this a guy that's gonna be really, really like have terrible takes? I think there's a valid concern to that. I think it's also a valid question of like, I'm coming here, I'm talking and making things way deeper than they need to be on a daily basis, and sometimes not deep enough. What is my perspective on that? And I think I will say that similar to my stance on morality, I do sit somewhere in the middle where it's like, I think that academia, intellectualism, all that, I think it's really cool. I think it's great. I read, I'd say 3/4 of my like literary consumption are very intense academic works, usually from a sociological lens. I read a lot of political economy, like I'm into that stuff all the way, right? I also really do love just a nice conversation with a friend where you're kind of mincing, you're waxing philosophical, and there's no real expertise involved. Because I think that there is a slippery slope to get on. I think this is a slippery slope that a lot of YouTubers have been getting on recently, where they're looking to cite more works and make things more academic in their content. And where does that end? How far can you go with that until you are oversighting, until you are making everything too academic, when that's not really your zone to be playing? So I think that there's something I really enjoy about an uninformed, this is just me throwing shit out there conversation. I really do like that. So the answer to like, if I'm somebody who is anti-intellectual, if I'm somebody that is doesn't like that sort of thing, is that I try with these. First of all, I'm not at all in my own personal life anti-intellectual. No, not at all. I think that modern day academia, I have flaws with it. I have things that I critique that are just boring and not cool to discuss on Paint and Talk. Also, there's no reason to. I don't think anybody's interested in that. but I, in my personal life, am not that at all. As far as what I'm trying to do here, if this is an anti-intellectual or intellectual thing, no, it's not at all. It's neither. Like, I don't think it's either one. I think that, one, no, I'm not intellectual. Like, that's not, I don't have any formal training. I don't have a master's or a PhD in any, philosophical field, which I don't need to tell you guys. You know that. Like, you can, yeah, I think I asked yesterday for a word for a liver. So I don't need to tell you guys that I'm an idiot. You already know that. But on top of that, I don't want to be. You know what I mean? These are not philosophical diatribes. These are me chopping it up with you guys, right? I do want to sit somewhere in the middle, though, in terms of like the aesthetic experience of one of these, right? Since I read so much literature that is, in the vein of academia or studies or articles or, all that stuff. Is it a treatise? Are treaties still in fashion? Are treaties still a big thing? Are those in vogue still? I think there is like a nice middle ground of like I try to, in my own reading, take away something that makes for a more interesting conversation. I'm sure you guys have noticed, if you've been watching a lot of these, that like much of my content will come from quotes that I read in a book that I think is interesting. So I do view these academic things as a sort of jumping off pad to make things more interesting. However, I am not trying to be that. So I'd say I am staunchly, neutrally neutral. I think I'm just somewhere in the middle. I'm trying to have a little bit of fun. I also just like reading books like that, so that might come out a little sometimes. I think it is a valid concern, though. I just took up probably way too much of this episode's runtime discussing that very valid concern, but I think there is like, I think I did need to kind of talk about that, because like I'm coming here and I'm going like, oh, I read this in a book or in a study, or I went to a talk about this thing, and like I think it could give off the vibe of like, oh, this is a serious person, where to you guys who have been here a little longer, we all know I am by no means a serious person. I barely have the painting under my belt, let alone the talking. This is a journey. So speaking of things not being that deep, that was something that I did indeed feel was that deep. But my answer wasn't. See, so that's where I come to a lot of the time on questions like that. This is something that I actually, because of my background, where I largely do consume a lot of more politically oriented stuff, I take opinions that play both sides as being a little bit more uninformed. Oftentimes, by the way, like in the world that I come from, that is like a pretty solid rule of thumb. Like when people are less opinionated, oftentimes they are a little, I don't want to sound conceited, just because I went on that whole rant right there. No, but like that is a thing. I think I get that conception from my own background, from my own experiences. But if you go through a whole process thinking about something and come out in the middle, does that make something not as deep? This is the question that I kind of come back to a lot. If you go submerge deep down into the water, and then when you're down there, you're like, no, knee level was the solid height to be at. Does that make something not as deep, or does it mean that you have fully exhausted everything? Because I feel oftentimes what I end up coming to the conclusion of is like something is that deep, but it hurts my brain to think about it too deeply, so I end up only going knee level. So I feel less honest because of that. Like I feel as if I have not thought about things well enough because of that. I think that's perhaps my own insecurity speaking. But being the guy growing up who was going, no, everything is that deep. Like I'm gonna, like, F you, I'm gonna go think about it. Coolest guy you could imagine. 10-year-old me was just the life of the party, going, F you, I'm gonna go think about that. But, like, is there, like, I think it gave me this idea of, like, to think deeply about something, to go all the way in. Does that necessarily have to be true? And is there even a rule on when, you know, similar to, there could be kind of an irony to this conversation, right? Because similar to how I'm going, like, oh, sometimes my answer to things is just chill and do whatever you think works. Half because it hurts my brain to think more, half because I think that's a really good way to go. I think, like, you know, being informed without giving any sort of prescriptive advice is genuinely a really great way to go a lot of the time. Because of that, I think I have this image that, like, that's not a good answer to things. But could the answer to the whole, like, you know, I'm coming here, sorry, this is losing its legs fast because, as I predicted at the start, it would. No, but, you know, I'm coming here and asking this question of, like, what is the rule of when something is that deep versus not that deep, right? And making it deeper than it has to be, that's deeply ironic, I guess, but, could the answer be the same as what I'm critiquing here of whatever works, you know? Some people might want to sit and have a 40-minute conversation about, you know, back to the fry example, do you want curly fries or waffle fries? Some people might love that. They might be like, no, this is something that is that deep. And then if you ask them about, like, you know, their thoughts on the economy, they'll be like, I don't care. Like, you know, or just like, it's up or down. Like, it's like they'll have just a very, they won't care. So that's not that deep to them. So is everything just sitting somewhere in the middle? Is everything just as deep or as not deep as you personally want to make it, as you personally feel is good? And then the rest, the whole other conversation, is just audience oriented? Because I think that's I think two things about that, right? One, I think that suggests that everything has a capability to be that deep, which is kind of what I said at the beginning, right? That as a kid, I thought, and still think now, that, like, anything has capability to be as deep as you want to make it. For some people who are into science, they might think analyzing the chemical makeup of how a waffle fry versus a curly fry cooks up is the coolest thing on earth, right? That's a real genuine thing. And that's awesome. I think that's really cool. For other people, they might not. So that has an infinite level of deepness that you can take that conversation. So in a way, I guess that part of things is pretty accurate, right? That anything can be as deep or as not deep as you want to make it. I think the answer to this question that I've come here with, that I've bothered myself and all of you with, is not so much that there needs to be a rule as I thought that, like, I need to have a level or some guiding rule of when to make things deep versus when not to, but more so that anything has the capability to be as deep as you want to make it. It fully depends on just how you feel, whether in the moment or at large, about whether you want to genuinely make it that deep. And that, to me, feels like the right answer. Guess we came full circle on that one. Yeah, I got nothing. This is the painting. Go check it out over on Instagram. Interesting nose on this guy. Eyes are a little wonky. Having fun with the faces. I really do like these faces. I think they're very fun. I've never gotten one as good as the first face, but so I guess beginner's luck. But outside of that, these are really fun to make. I really enjoy these. So go check it out over on Instagram. And until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This has been Paint Talk episode 82. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.